Hey, y'all, it's MaKendree Van Hall, your friendly digital neighborhood podcaster, and thanks for joining us for another live cast. Now, today, it's just me, no interviewee, and I wanted to take this opportunity to sit down and have a little chat about something that's been a major pain in most of our asses, and that's anti-vaxxers. Now, I know I talk about this a lot, but I think these folks are going to continue to be a continuous problem as we try to come out on the other side of this pandemic. And this conversation hits a little bit differently for me today because I have personally, as of tonight, been harassed and threatened by said anti-vaxxers. So I think this is a conversation that is important, and it's certainly on my mind as I'm fresh out of this experience. Now, one of the things that is crucial for me in regards to this show is that my viewers, my listeners, that you all are equipped to tackle social issues that are causing a tremendous deal of harm in our communities and in society at large. And the current pandemic of the unvaccinated is surely one of the most important things that we could discuss right now, because the numbers are clear. 98.5% of people in California, and in most states, those statistics are pretty similar, 98.5% that are hospitalized and or dying of COVID are unvaccinated, with virtually no deaths reported of fully vaccinated Americans. In fact, those statistics are even similar to the rate of breakthrough infections as well. 1.5% of people that are fully vaccinated are coming down with COVID-19 right now. The vaccines are proving to be our most valuable weapon against this novel virus. And we all have anti-vaxxers in our family that refuse to acknowledge the existence of COVID, or maybe they're in your circle of influence and they refuse to believe that vaccines are safe due to a sea and swarm of misinformation that has been pumped into their brains. And yes, I believe they have brains, even though sometimes that's questionable. I think they are not completely dumb. So today I wanted to arm you with some talking points and action plans that will possibly, and that's the key word, possibly help convince these people to bite the bullet and get the shot. Shots. And first and foremost, if you manage or own a business, I strongly suggest requiring proof of vaccinations for indoor seating at your establishment. Our church-owned brewery has implemented this procedure, and already people that were not previously vaccinated decided to get the shot because they now see that not being vaccinated could possibly affect their social life. Now, as a customer, when you approach the bar, we ask for proof of vaccination, and then you get your temperature scanned, and we make sure that our clients are not symptomatic. Again, if you own a business or if you have a space that you operate, I highly encourage you to practice something similar. And for us, if customers are not vaccinated, they are required to wear a mask and immediately take their drink to the outdoor patio for their safety. Now, over the course of the last few days, there have been some customers that believe this step is somehow oppressive or government overreach. Now, first off, I want to address that directly. People of privilege, an inconvenience that is implemented for your protection, not for mine. Clearly, the numbers indicate that vaccinated folks like myself are going to be just fine. But for your protection, because you're unvaccinated, those inconveniences, though they might be an unpleasant experience for you, that's not oppression. Because if we're implementing this for your protection while offering you an equally pleasant accommodation like dining outdoors on a beautiful patio located in coastal California, that is nothing like the Holocaust, okay? So stop saying that nonsense. Speed limits are not oppressive. Safety harnesses on roller coasters are not oppressive. Wearing an oxygen tank when 50 meters below the surface of the ocean is not oppressive. Warning labels and child-proof caps on dangerous medications if you were to overdose on them, those things are not oppressive. They are called safety measures, and these policies are meant to protect citizens in our community. And if you do not like COVID safety procedures, then you can stay home. Just pretend it's every other issue of social injustice in America and stay home for those like you do for protests that engage real systemic oppression like racism, misogyny, capitalism, and bigotry. Pretend that these COVID policies are the same thing and just stay home like you do for everything else. Now, secondly, the accusation that our breweries' policies are somehow government overreach, that's really ridiculous because our brewery is not owned by the government, okay? Any private business, for that matter, they are allowed to install their own policies, and that has nothing to do with government overreach. That just has to do with their rights as a business. Private businesses have every right to refuse service to anyone and require customers to behave according to their guidelines. No shoes, no shirt, no service. Does that ring any bells for anyone? We just added no shot to our indoor service policy. Yes, regardless of what you think, it is legal. And no, it's not a HIPAA violation. And by the way, please Google how to spell HIPAA. I'm tired of just seeing that misspelled all over the place. But HIPAA, when it's spelled correctly, at its core is meant to protect you from medical personnel sharing your private information, and it was ultimately designed and implemented to protect insurance companies, not you, the person that is having medical information protected. It was not designed to protect your welfare at all, but rather the welfare of corporations. HIPAA does not prohibit private citizens or businesses from asking you about your vaccination status. You can elect to share that if you are not inoculated, or you can elect to share if you are, but HIPAA does not prevent me from asking about your vaccination status. Now, before you cucumbers get your tinfoil hats in a bunch, we agree to allow those with written medical exemptions from actual doctors, not from the chiropractors or their yogis or from their alternative medicine enthusiasts, but actual doctors to dine indoors while they are masked. But thus far, those who claim that they can't get vaccinated for medical reasons have never actually produced a written vaccination exemption from an actual doctor. The one that I have seen was from a chiropractor. No, we got to see it from a doctor. So we are trying to accommodate folks that can't get vaccinated because, yes, a very small portion of the populace cannot get vaccinated. It's like the evidence for Sasquatch with these folks. It's totally word of mouth, and the evidence is always sketchy, and the source of the misinformation is a furry Northern California native that lives in the woods. Okay, that's what we're dealing with on a weekly basis. But MaKendree, what about breakthrough infections? Yes, vaccinated people can and probably will get COVID in their lifetime. It's likely going to happen to all of us, whether we're inoculated or not. But the odds of us dying if we are vaccinated from the virus are slim and none now that we have a strong antibody response that has been programmed in our bodies. We are likely to have mild symptoms at worst. What is more is that vaccinated people shed far less virus than unvaccinated people, and the minor viral load that we shed as vaccinated people compared to the unvaccinated portion of our populace is also weakened by our immune system. So even if one were to catch COVID from me, a vaccinated individual, it will likely be far less deadly than contracting COVID from unvaccinated peoples in their community. But are the vaccines safe? MaKendree, yes, they are safe. They were given emergency authorization from the FDA, which requires the same amount of testing that every vaccine must go through. And now they are being given full FDA approval, starting with the Pfizer vaccine. And pretty soon, J&J and Moderna are going to be fully approved by the FDA as well. And they were just manufactured in a fraction of the time that other vaccines have been in the past because A, scientists worked around the clock to combat the pandemic, B, because a new supercomputer was designed to isolate proteins in novel viruses, and COVID was the first time this technology had ever been utilized. It's a tremendous technological and scientific achievement, and we should be celebrating this, not scared of it. And also, C, because the SARS vaccine was already available, and since SARS is also a coronavirus with similar properties, it was easy to break down the proteins of COVID-19 using the pre-existing SARS vaccine as a roadmap to get us life-saving medication. But some of the vaccines are not fully approved by the FDA, and while this is true, they are surely enough going to be in due time in the coming weeks. That process took some time due to the bureaucratic nature of the FDA that has more to do with the hoops and red tape that one must go through to get the approval rather than the safety of the vaccine. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson will likely be given full approval in the coming weeks. Mark my words. However, we are going to do a little science experiment here on the show. I'm really excited about this. Let's Bill Nye this live cast up a little bit. Pause this live cast right now, or keep it on and just go to your medicine cabinet and look through your vitamin and supplement supply, or even your hygienic products or your makeup. Heck, even look in your fridge and check out the organic food that you have in there. Okay, and check the labels on these products. Go ahead and do it. I'm going to give you a second. You're going to find, take your time, that most of the things that you use or consume on a daily basis are not approved by the FDA. A couple days ago, one of our employees and a really good friend of mine who is pregnant sent me a photo of her prenatal vitamins when I challenged her to do the same thing. And lo and behold, those are not approved by the FDA. So please stop saying that the vaccine is an experiment. It's not. It is a tried and true system that has gotten us out of every major pandemic for decades, for centuries. And don't bring the founding fathers into this nonsense. George fucking Washington was vaccinated, y'all. George Washington was. Don't say that the founding fathers would have opposed this when they themselves were vaccinated. And regardless, even if the vaccines were experimental treatments, you know what else is an experimental treatment? The drugs that they're going to pump into you if you're hospitalized with COVID-19. And speaking of experimental treatments, anti-vaxxers on both sides of the political spectrum are now taking livestock medication in an attempt to combat COVID-19. And I wish I could say that was a joke, because it is the dumbest thing I have heard in a long time, and it doesn't surprise me at all that it's coming from the anti-vax community. But y'all, by the way, this hasn't been approved by the FDA, now that I'm thinking about it, to treat COVID-19. Taking ivermectin, like literal livestock medication, that definitely hasn't been approved by the FDA to combat COVID-19. And they released a statement this week, the FDA begging people to stop taking horse and sheep dewormer because poison control calls have increased by 80% across the nation due to the consumption of ivermectin. The producers of ivermectin actually went online and said, this is not designed to combat a novel virus. Please stop taking this. I mean, anti-vaxxers, they won't trust leading epidemiologists with treating COVID, but they somehow trust good old Jimbo down at the feed and seed store on the outskirts of town to treat COVID-19. And by the way, I know I said that with a country accent, but this isn't just country folk in red states. This is people that are in the, organic live, laugh, and love crowd that are opposed to vaccines that would identify as politically left-leaning. This is not just a Republican problem, y'all. And it's absolute madness. It's pandemonium out there. But MaKendree, I know someone that knew someone that knew someone that heard from someone that their family member died of the vaccine. Look, y'all, I'm not going to lie. All right, adverse reactions are rare, but they happen. But I can assure you that as a minister, that I have met far more people mourning loved ones, mourning their family members that they lost to COVID than I have met in the entirety of this pandemic of people that even got remotely sick from this vaccine. I've not met one person, the person that even got hospitalized by taking this vaccine. You know how many people I've met that have lost loved ones from COVID-19? Countless. You know how many conversations I've had with people that are heartbroken because their family members were anti-vaxxers that refused to get the vaccine, and lo and behold, they contracted COVID-19, they were hospitalized, and ultimately died? Countless people. And even if you do hear these stories about people dying in the vaccines, if you do some digging, all right, you're quickly going to see that they are oftentimes based in nonsensical claims too. I met a guy in his 50s last week. It was the craziest thing that happened that week. I wish I could say like in a while, but we're in the middle of this pandemic. Crazy things are happening all the time. It was the craziest thing that happened that week. And I was having some whiskey, and this guy came up and was talking to me, and we were talking about, the pandemic, and he ended up being an anti-vaxxer, and I was saying that I'm pro-vaccine, and he explained to me that his aunt died after she was vaccinated. Now, this dude was probably in his late 50s, from what I could tell. And with a little questioning, I found out that his aunt was 96 years old. 96 years old. Y'all do know this is above average age to exit this plane of existence, right? Like, I'm not a smart person, Gen A, but I'm willing to bet my entire bourbon collection, and I love that collection, that being 96 probably killed that person before the COVID vaccine did. Not a doctor, just saying. And finally, your objections may not matter soon because some cities are leading the charge in community safety. This week, San Francisco implemented their policy of requiring proof of vaccination for all indoor services and events. And as I mentioned before, our brewery was the first in Central California, unknown to me at the time when we implemented this, to require proof of vaccination at the door before you come in and enjoy our indoor bar. And 6 other local businesses, to my surprise, have also implemented similar procedures as well, which I consider that to be a win for us. So you might as well come to terms with this now. These policies are going to be the norm, and if you do not want them to impact your day-to-day life, then just get the shot. And don't bring your religious exemptions into this conversation either, because the Vatican, to my surprise, is refusing to issue vaccine exemptions to those seeking medical excuses for their disdain and mask and vaccine mandates. The Bible says, shut up, Kyle, even mask mandates and excluding those that are contagious from public spaces are in the Bible. Both of those things are. This is in the book of Leviticus. It says this: the person who has leprosy shall wear torn clothes, and the hair of their head shall be disheveled. And he shall cover his upper lip and cry out, unclean, unclean. He shall remain unclean as long as he has the disease. He is unclean. He shall live alone. His dwelling shall be outside of the camp. Lepers, at the time of ancient Judaic society, they had to remove themselves from their tribal communities because this was the safety measure that had to be implemented. It was drastic, but it actually protected their communities. And the only time that this would change in the biblical narrative was when lepers were healed by the hands of someone with the ability to remove their affliction. Now, in the biblical narrative, that healing hand was eventually Jesus. In the real world, that healing hand is called the hand of science. And no, scientists are not trying to put a microchip in you. How do I know this? Because you already have microchips on you at all times, Karen. Tracking devices are in your phone, they're in your car, they're in your debit card, and your computer. They don't need to give you another one. So if you want equal access to public spaces, you need to be vaccinated. Period. All right? And if you are a pro-life Christian, here is your chance to prove how sacred you believe all life is. All you have to do is get a tiny little shot that you're barely going to feel from experience, possibly 2 shots depending on your choice of medication, and you will be far less likely to kill an innocent person that comes in contact with you, and you will be able to access public spaces and indoor venues safely, all while saying that you did this because you believe life is sacred. But my suspicion is that pro-lifers are really just pro-patriarchy, and not only do they want to have complete freedom to harm others with their unvaccinated bodies, they would also like the freedom to control the bodies of women as well, because that's always been their MO. And this leads me to my final point. My body, my choice does not hold up for vaccines. All right. Your body ends where my nose begins. Your body ends where the nose of a child or a person that is susceptible to a deadly virus begins. All right. Period. If you do not want to vaccinate, then yes, that is your choice. But freedom of choice does not mean freedom of consequence. You should not be allowed to endanger others due to ignorance and or misinformation. And for now, outdoor services are a reasonable accommodation for you to keep your ignorant beliefs about this pandemic while we keep America safe and rebuild our broken society from the aftermath of this now preventable disease. And the fact that we have to make these accommodations at this point is absurd. Get the shot. Period. It's safe, it's effective, it's a tried and true method, and I'm tired of coddling this nonsense when death, disease, and the breakdown of our economy is absolutely preventable, and the solution is at your fingertips. So go get it done, or prove that you don't care about anybody but yourself. And until next week, no justice, no peace. And if we truly know justice, then we will surely know peace, especially if we're vaccinated. Grace and peace. Love y'all. Hey, y'all, MaKendree Van Hall. Thanks so much for tuning in. Don't forget to smash that like button, share this video with your friends, and don't forget to follow our podcast, Rev'd Up Theolitics, available wherever podcasts are also available. Until next week, grace and peace. Love y'all. And now, may the revolution of Jesus go with you wherever it may send you. May it guide you in healing this wasteland and protect you through the storm. May it lead you through this world seeking the justice it demands for you and for others. And may it bring you home preparing to continue love's mission beyond your doors. Grace and justice to you.